Hi, in this film we're going to discover what makes a diminished seventh chord. And a diminished seventh chord is rather useful because it gives a little bit of colour, and maybe if you're someone who's used to using chords but you just kind of basically use the same chords over and over again and you're looking for something a bit colourful, the diminished seventh could be what you're looking for. Now you can make a diminished seventh chord on any note that you choose. So let's take a note and see if we can build one. So let's start with the note C. It's as good as anything else. And basically a diminished seventh piles up minor thirds or the equivalent of minor thirds. Now if you're not quite sure what I'm talking about there with minor thirds, let's do this a different way. I'll start with C and then I'm going to count up 3 semitones. 1, 2, 3. So the next note is E flat or D sharp. Let's count up another 3. 1, 2, 3. And I've now got an F sharp or a G flat. Let me count up another 3. 1, 2, 3. And I get to A. So I've got C, E flat, F sharp, A. But it could be C, E flat, G flat, A. So there are different possibilities for how you specifically name the notes, what we call enharmonic changes. So this can be D sharp or it can be E flat. How do we know? Well, it depends which key you're in at the time. But for now, don't worry too much about that. But you can hear this distinctive sound of a diminished seventh chord that has these intervals that we call minor thirds. And if I move up to C sharp, there's another diminished seventh. Here's another one. And it's a very distinctive sound, isn't it? And if you've ever seen one of those old silent movies, sometimes you get this kind of diminished seventh thing. And it's kind of quite dramatic, isn't it? So there we are. You can build a diminished seventh on any note that you wish to. However, diminished sevenths also belong to keys. And you may have wondered what I've got up here on the board. Well, in the key of C major, I've written a scale of C major at the bottom. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then I go back to C for the next octave. And what I've done is built up the chords, what we call chords 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And to do that, you put the third note and the fifth note above each note of the scale. You see I've got a pattern of 3 notes on lines, 3 notes in spaces, 3 notes on lines, 3 notes in spaces, and so on. So chord 1 is C, E, G, then there's chord 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now if I want to work out a diminished seventh in the key of C, those are all the chords for the key of C, what I need to do is to find chord 7. Now you don't have to write out all these notes to do this. You could just think, well, what's the 7th note in a scale of C? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there we are. And you get your chord 7. And you'll notice that these notes are already a minor third apart. There's the B, and then 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. All I've got to do is add another minor third on top. So go another 1, 2, 3, and I've got my diminished seventh. So the note that I'm going to stick on the top of there is A flat. Now there's nothing to say it shouldn't be G sharp, but if it was G sharp, then it would probably really be heading for another key, like A minor or something. But don't worry about that for now. But there we are, a whole series of these minor thirds that you just do by counting up 3. There's a diminished seventh in the key of C. And what tends to happen is the diminished seventh is quite often followed by a chord 1. So if I put this chord up an octave, you can hear that that chord kind of is pulling us into this chord. So what I'm going to end up with is that one followed by this one, which is chord 1. So you can kind of see how that goes. So I hope that doesn't sound too technical, but I hope it just kind of gets you into the world of the diminished seventh chord. So you can be playing a piece of music and then suddenly you want a bit of dramatic colour and in comes your diminished seventh. So I could be playing in C major. And then I could have a diminished seventh. And you see it just adds a little bit of colour to the sound. So there we are. That's its function, to add a bit of colour, add a bit of drama. So have a little experiment with the diminished seventh chord.